Much like the latest James Bond movie, I've been waiting quite some time to sample the delights of this car. In fact, when I first saw it back at Frankfurt 2019 as a concept car in the Hyundai stand, I've been itching to get my hands on it. And ever since then, it's been hyped up. Well, not unlike the latest 007 movie. So, now that it's finally here, does it live up to that hype? Well, given how important that it is, I'm not going to be comparing it to any chocolate bars or small furry animals. It's just going to be a no-holds-barred road test. No pithy comments, no silly jokes. In fact, you could say it's no time to Hyundai. Sorry, just couldn't help myself. Anyway, welcome to the Hyundai Ioniq 5 and welcome to AutoEV. Now, before we obviously get on to the road test of the new Hyundai Ioniq 5, it is, of course, yes folks, that time when I ask you to like the videos, subscribe to the channel, press the little bell button down below so you get notification of when our next video goes live. So, it's finally here. We've finally got our hands on the Ioniq 5. But what is it? Well, you might have heard a little bit about it. I mean, it's Hyundai's new electric sub-brand, if you like. Previously, the Ioniq badge was tacked onto a sort of worthy but slightly dull little 5-door family hatchback. It was available in either hybrid, plug-in hybrid or full electric, a bit like a Toyota Prius. Now, we've road tested that car, and if you want to have a look at that, I'll pop the link up in the screen above us. But now it isn't. Ioniq is going to be their sub-brand, as I say, like BMW's i, Audi's e-tron, Mercedes EQ branding. It's a bit like that, and it's the first of, well, quite a few cars. It shares its eGMP platform with sister brand Kia's EV6 and also luxury spin-off Genesis GV60. But the Ioniq 5, well, it's quite an important car for a young brand like Hyundai. And does it live up to that hype that I mentioned before? Let's find out. Now, of course, the first thing to talk about is the way the car looks. And I happen to think it looks absolutely sensational. Well, that and the actual physical stature of the car. You see, when you see the car in pictures, you think it's going to be sort of like a C-sector hatchback, like a Golf or a Focus or an Astra. But then you see it in real life, and it's way bigger than that. I think what happened is somebody at Hyundai's design department drew the car, then handed the drawings to the office junior and said, photocopy that and give it to the management. And the wee chap pressed the 110% button by mistake. But it is a really, really big car, but that is a good thing. And we'll go on to that a little bit later. Anyway, the styling, what's it all about? Well, here it wears its Hyundai badge loud and proud on the front. These 8-bit pixelated headlights look unbelievably good. It looks like my daughter designed them in Minecraft. And then below that, you've got this kind of moustache of vertical LED lights that just come alive at night and give the car a really distinctive face. And that's much like the back as well, but we'll see that in a second. You've got this kind of frowning stormtrooper look to the front of it, your sensor and your camera embedded behind this kind of perspex here. There's no grille in the car for obvious reasons, but it does have some cooling, and it's active cooling. It's down here. These vents open and close at speed. But wait till you see around the side. I mean, come on, just look at it. It's fantastic. It looks like a piece of origami. This wonderful swage line down there and these slashes here. And these massive 20-inch alloys. Now, there's two choices of alloy wheel depending on trim level, 19-inch and 20s. These are the 20-inch wheels. And look at them, beautifully intricate. And then they've got these kind of slashes in the kind of wheel arch extensions, like the wheels have thrown something up and just kind of scored them. But talking of wheels, look at the wheelbase. It's 3 meters long. It's like it's in a different postcode. 3 meters. Now, to give you some idea, that's longer wheelbase than a Range Rover. Not an Evoque, not an Velar, not a Sport, a full-size Vogue. It's 8 centimeters longer wheelbase than a Range Rover Vogue. I mean, look at it. It is absolutely out of this world, this car. And then there's the back of it. If you hadn't got enough of the front, look at the back. It's amazing. Look at these lights. I absolutely love this. And again, the Ioniq sort of like logo emblazoned across the back. Slashes down here where you've got the fog lights as well. reversing camera kind of hidden up in there. The only downside, as you can see, I'm filming this on a slightly wet day, and yesterday I was doing some running around locally with my daughter, and it was absolutely torrential rain in the morning, no rear wiper. Much like the Jaguar I-Pace, they've decided that, well, the airflow, because there's some slashes in here where the airflow will come down over there and clean the screen and keep it nice and clean at the back. That's all very well from a design point of view, but if you're just running around town locally at low speed, it doesn't clear, and you really need that. Just surely they could have tucked a wiper up in there. But other than that, absolutely just phenomenal. Hyundai's best design without doubt ever. And the first good news when it comes to the physical size of the car is luggage capacity. It is a reasonably good size. Boot in here is 527 litres up to the parcel shelf, which is obviously here. When you fold the rear seats down, it has a 60-40 split rear seat. That can go up to 1,587 litres. But you can actually increase the boot space without folding the seats down, because the rear seats do actually slide backwards and forwards, but I'll show you that later. You get some underfloor storage in here, not a massive amount, but you get enough for some of your charging cables and your TAN mobility kit. But there is a bigger bag here for one of the charging cables. And because it's based on a unique and dedicated EV platform, there is a small amount of space under the front boot, bonnet, boot, whatever you want to call it, but I'll show you that in a second. Suitcase wise, yes, absolutely. One large suitcase. Pop that out there. Two travel suitcases. Easily in there. There's my camera bag. And there's plenty more space obviously as well. But as I say, there's a little bit more up front. So let's have a quick look at that. So here you go. Now that's 57 litres in here, which is enough for something like my camera bag, rucksack, or for that cable bag we were talking about earlier. But be warned, this car I have is the rear wheel drive one. You can have the Ioniq 5 with all wheel drive, and if you specify that, that space drops to just 24 litres, which is about that space. Enough for a sandwich, I'd say. The first thing I want to talk about before I go on to rear seat space is this, which I think is worthy of mention. Getting into the car. Now, if you're of limited mobility, or shall we say of a certain age, dropping down into a low sort of like C-sector hatchback, or trying to climb into sort of like a big crossover or SUV might not be ideal for you. This, however, I mean, it's as straightforward as that. I mean, it's literally just, you just step across and you're straight in. The doors open nice and wide and you just step straight out. I mean, they've really thought about this car, and I love that. And the benefit of that 3 metre wheelbase is felt back here, because it is vast, the space back here. There is ample room. In fact, you really notice it when you look forward to where the windscreen is. It feels like it's in a completely different county, to be honest with you. And if I want to talk to the driver, it'd probably be easier just to send him an email or a postcard or a letter maybe. Anyway, the rear seat space, yeah, really good. It's got plenty of knee room. This passenger seat's actually quite far back. That driver seat's in my position, so there's bags of space there. I've got loads of headroom as well. The only thing I will say is the seats, there's not a massive amount of footroom. Because the car sits on this dedicated platform, all the batteries are on it like a skateboard underneath. It does kind of force your legs up a tiny little bit, and then trying to keep the height of the car down, obviously there's a bit of a squeeze, and you can just feel it just underneath the seats. But if you're pretty much okay, because then obviously you've got no transmission tunnel here as well. But that's my second biggest problem with cars these days. When I sold cars back in the early 1990s, I sold Fiat. And the Fiat Tipo from the early 1990s had 3 dedicated rear seats. So the person that was sitting in the middle had the same type of seat as the one on either side. But in here, you're sitting on a really hard seat. I mean, you've plenty of room, but it's not very comfortable really. Anyway, that's progress for you. Anyway, like I said earlier as well, the seats also slide, so you can increase the boot space if you need to as well. You've got folding, obviously, armrests. You've got a couple of cup holders here. You've got nets in the back here. Door bins, they're they're okay, they're not vast, I would say. They'll probably take a water bottle or stuff. You've got 2 USB ports there, not USB-Cs. I'm told that's the modern thing. I don't know, they're just USBs as far as I'm concerned, but there's 2 of them down there. A tiny little bit of storage there. And as I say, you've got a really nice ample load of seating back here. There's face vents. Also as well, on this particular model, I've got heated seats on the outer 2 seats here, and ISOFIX points which are located either side here and in the front passenger seat. So all in all, a really commodious cabin and really, really good for everyday sort of like family stuff. So much like the outside, well, it's the interior that is a real talking point. And it's dominated by the sense of space like you have in the back as well. Much like Mercedes-Benz with their sort of twin screens up here, that's exactly what you get here. And it's very reminiscent of the Hyundai Nexo, their fuel cell car, which we've also road tested. Again, if you've not seen that video, we'll pop a link up so you can go and have a look at it after you've watched this one, of course. So, 2 12.3-inch screens across the dashboard. Nice and easy to use. Everything's simple. So you got a nice big kind of navigation there, and you get your instrumentation there. The only downside with me, when I'm in my driving position and I've got it set up, you can't really configure this too much. And the speed's on the left-hand side and ranges on the right. And where I sit, they're just... you kind of just got to bend down a little bit to peer underneath the wheel. It would be nice if you could reconfigure it so that's in the middle, because then this trip stuff that's here, which is good to have, but not the most important thing, you could put that to the sides and this one and, you know, the speedometer in there. But there you go. This car's also fitted with a head-up display, which is pretty good, and it also has the kind of augmented reality, so it'll kind of direct you on the screen, and when you've got your lane system, so your lane keep assist guidance going, if you're wandering too far, you can see the arrows kind of nudging you back in. But again, I'll go on to that in a second. Right, good driving position. The seats are excellent. This car has the tech pack fitted, and it's got these reclining seats, which I'll show you in a second, where you can recline them back, and there's a under thigh support as well, so that's pretty good. And everything is laid out really well. Now, the only thing I will say, the screen is a tiny little bit of a sort of stretch away. I mean, it's a bit of a kind of first world problem, if I'm honest with you, but you know, you've got to kind of really, I've got to really stretch across for it. Apple CarPlay, Android Auto is standard. The screen itself is nice and responsive. There is some physical buttons down here, depending obviously on what you want to use. So for your parking cameras, to tune the radio, to swap between your media, your navigation and map mode, and then a physical volume button. You've also got the buttons on the steering wheel, which look touch sensitive, but they're not. You physically got to press them, so that's good. You do have, however, your ventilation buttons down here, which are touch sensitive, but they are quite limited in number. Hyundai have kind of simplified them, so actually you don't need to worry too much about them. The only thing, again, I found a bit odd the other day, I was looking for the heated seat, and you've kind of got to go in there, pressing this, and then there's your seats there. I mean, I'd quite just like a button on and off. I mean, maybe I'm just a bit of a dinosaur, but you get buttons for the rear ones, so I'm not sure why there isn't a button for the front ones, but there isn't. But in fairness, it's not really, as I say, it's a bit of a first world problem, that, to be honest with you. This car's also equipped with ventilated seats, heated seats. It's got heated steering wheel. Obviously, it's got cruise control, the active cruise control. It's got lane keep assist. It's got collision monitoring. All the safety equipment you can shake a stick at. Again, we'll talk about it when we're driving the car. But it's the feeling of space, as I say, and I absolutely love that here. This centre console, you can slide backwards or forwards, depending obviously what you need. So if you want more comfort for the armrest, you slide all the way forward and you've got it there. If you want more space, so you can kind of get your foot through. If you want to play footsie with your passenger, for instance, don't know why you'd want to do that, but if you do, you can, and you just put it through forward. 12-volt socket there, USB, again, not USB-C, USB port there, bit of a cubby box in there, and then storage itself down here. Well, there's more storage than a big yellow storage unit, to be honest with you. You've got 2 big cup holders here. I've got an armrest that folds out the way, a great big tray there, wireless charging pad for the mobile, another 2 USB ports there, another little tray in there. This centre armrest, when I can work it properly, it folds up and there's storage in there. The glove box isn't a box, it's a drawer. that slides out and it's really deep. You can get loads of stuff in there. I mean, it is a really lovely place to be. Criticisms are few, if I'm being honest with you. And I've spent a long time in this car and I've done a couple of really long journeys in it. And the only thing that I can really sort of like say, first of all, is Hyundai's insistence on using this kind of silver plastic for its buttons. And although they're backlit during the day, they're difficult to see. And just some of the secondary controls just still feel a little bit cheap, like these door handles. They feel really plasticky and cheap. The rest of the materials that they use, you know, up on the door, dashboard, this bit along here, is fine, but there's just the odd little minor control that you feel, like these paddles on the back of the steering wheel, and as I say, the door handles. And they're things you touch. Those are things you actually come in contact with. And I would have concentrated more making them feel a little bit more substantial, if I'm honest with you, Hyundai. But otherwise, as I say, there's very few things to really criticise in here. It's like the BMW i3, there's just that nice feeling of spaciousness you get, like you get in the little Hyundai as well. It opens up the whole cockpit and it's lovely and it's well laid out, it's easy to read, everything's easy to see, bar maybe that wee bit on the dashboard, as I say. Other than that, I really can't complain about this interior, other than those little niggles. Again, it's been a lovely place to spend time and very comfortable. Ah, the seats, yeah, very good comfortable seats. As I say, we'll talk about the reclining bit in a second, but the actual seats themselves, the way they hold you, they don't look, might not look like much at first glance, but on a long trip, they've just got a really nice way of just kind of cupping you around the back. They've got enough under thigh support. Absolutely first class, first class. Talking of first class, let's look at these reclining seats. So yeah, you get a little bit tired while you're waiting for your car to charge. You can lift your feet up and have a little nap, or do other things that you might want to do while your car's charging. I'll leave that to your imagination there. Actually, this is really unnerving, I have to say. Yeah, I don't like this. Yeah, I don't like that. I don't know how you get it back either. Oh, I'm such a klutz when it comes to stuff like this. There we go. What I also forgot to mention is, like the little Honda E, there's a 3-pin plug in the back as well. So if you were having a little nap and maybe you wanted to make yourself, I don't know, maybe a little cup of coffee or something, or plug your laptop in while you were working. Quite handy that. Well done, Hyundai. Now, the Ioniq 5 comes in a couple of different flavours, depending obviously on your need. You can have a smaller 58 kilowatt hour battery. Now that's mated to a single motor mounted at the rear that delivers 170 PS, and that should give a range of around about 238 miles on the WLTP cycle. The car I have here is still a single motor car, but it delivers 217 PS and has a larger 73 kilowatt hour battery. Now the range goes up to 298 miles on the WLTP cycle with that car. You can also have it with all-wheel drive, so dual motor, front and rear motors. The power goes up to 305 PS, battery stays the same at 73 kilowatt hours, but the range will drop to just under 260 miles. So you pay your money, you take your choice, in other words. I think this car, the single motor, rear wheel drive with the big battery, is probably the sweet spot in the range, if I'm being completely honest with you. But what's important is how the Ioniq 5 charges. It's a bit like the Porsche Taycan. It has an 800 volt system, so it can take quite fast charging speeds, and it can deliver performance again and again and again. The battery degradation doesn't really have an effect on that. Charging speeds will go up to 220 kilowatts, and if you can find a fast charger capable of delivering those speeds, you can go from 10 to 80% in just 18 minutes, which is phenomenal. If it is a normal 50 kilowatt charger that you find out and about, then that goes up to about 56 minutes to go up to the 80%. It also has an 11 kilowatt 3-phase onboard charger as standard. So if you've got the 11 kilowatt wall box at home, charging the big battery up to full is just over 10 hours. The more standard 7 kilowatt one, which most people tend to have, is probably going to be around about 12 hours, as I say, overnight. Now you can use the app as well on your mobile phone to pre-program the car to sort of take advantage of cheap electricity tariffs as well. But it's on the move. It's where that sort of like those long trips where you go on the car, that's where Hyundai and Kia always win in my book, because their efficiency is so good. As I say, I've done a couple of long trips in this car, and the range that it says on the dashboard is pretty much what I get. You can't fault the Koreans for that. The car also comes with the option of a vehicle to load, a V2L adapter, which basically means you can plug that into the car and pull that down. It's got a little 3-pin socket there, and you can power external things, such as another Ioniq 5. That's clever. So the car that I have is the single motor rear wheel drive with the 73 kilowatt hour battery. Now that gives a power output of 217 PS, which means a 0 to 60 sprint of 7.5 seconds. Now that's a second quicker than the smaller battery with the lower power output, the 170 PS car, but it's 2 seconds down on the 305 PS all-wheel drive one. But frankly, I don't really see the need for that, to be honest with you. I think this car could be the sweet spot in the range. I really do. I think this has got more than enough power, it's got more than enough performance, and obviously the benefit is it gives you more range. So top tip for you there, folks. This is the one to buy, I think. How does it perform on the road? Well, it performs really, really nicely. I mean, again, it's a big car, and that sort of starts to make itself known if you try and hustle it too much. Now, by that I mean really be silly. I mean, if you're just, as we would maybe say, making progress, it's absolutely fine. The weight's really low down in the car, so although it is a big car, all the weight is low down. Most EVs, and the centre of gravity is low, so it handles relatively well, even for the rear wheel drive car. Grip's pretty good. You never really kind of find yourself in any, or I certainly haven't, any odd situations of understeer, and it's absolutely acceptable. There's some different modes, obviously, because we get them all with EVs, and it's done via this little button here, which is mounted like the Porsche Taycan's little scroll wheel for its drive selector on the steering wheel. So it's quite nice, it's easy to hand. The wheel itself is actually very nice as well. This kind of nice kind of 2-spoke steering wheel. Oh, sorry, got a few things rolling around in the back. This nice elegant 2-spoke steering wheel, very comfortable to hold, and it's leather trimmed all very nicely, and it's heated in this model too, so that's nice. Anyway, what was I saying? Oh, your drive modes, right. Okay, so if I'm in normal at the moment. If I go into sport, everything starts to glow a little bit red, and you get a torque meter down at the bottom, and ooh, oh wonderful, and it just picks up and it goes. And as I say, I think this is perfectly adequate for the type of car that it actually is. I don't think you need any more than this. So, you know, by putting this car into sport, it gives me all the performance that I would really need. I just don't see the need for the 305 PS one. From sport, you can go to normal, which, as I say, I've been kind of using the car most in, or the usual eco mode, where everything kind of shuts itself down and it starts to eke out the last bit of range for you. Brakes, they're good, they're nice, they're progressive, there's a nice feel to the pedal. You can adjust the regeneration like you can on most of the Kias and the Hyundais via these 2 paddles behind the steering wheel. So the left paddle brings it up. You've got 3 levels, and then if you press and if you hold, you go 4 levels up to max, and then I think if you hold it for a while, it goes on to what's called I pedal, which is its sort of 1 pedal driving mode. That's really good. So that's nice and aggressive, and then the left paddle dials that back, so you get less aggression on the regeneration. It works really well. I really like it. You can flip, oh sorry, that's the one thing I don't like about it. Let's just go quickly onto that. All these safety systems. Now you can switch them off, but you've got to delve into the menu systems. And I just, you know, as I say, for a dinosaur like me, I just want, you know, I just want a button where you can just turn it on and off. That would be great. You know, I mean, you turn it off, it stays off. I'd really like that. But never mind. To say, I'm a bit of a dinosaur. You've got to go into the menu and switch it all off. And you can have various different ones at a time. So you can have the radar guided cruise control, which is nice because it keeps you the safe distance from the car in front. Someone pulls it in front, it activates the brakes for you, which is good. That's quite handy. But the lane keep assist, well, I kind of know where the lanes are. I can see, you know, I'm not blind, I'm able to drive a car, so I don't really need the car helping me. It is level 2 autonomy. That's where we're all going, let's be honest. So they're starting to build all of that in. And also as well, Hyundai say the car will be able to receive over-the-air updates as well. So if you're into your tech, that's quite important for you. Oh shush, I know where the lane is. Right, go back to the driving. The steering's nice. As I say, it tightens up a little bit in sport. It doesn't do anything to the suspension, it just tightens the steering up. So that's quite nice. The ride quality, however, that's the only thing I would say I've got a real criticism over the drive for, and it is a minute criticism. Please don't get me wrong, it is very, very tiny. It's just at low speeds, the primary ride just seems to be, I don't know, I was expecting the car to be a bit softer, a bit more wafty, and it isn't. You can feel expansion joints, you can feel when you run over those cat's eyes, you can feel the drain covers. And I didn't really expect that. I thought it'd be a bit more isolated than that. But then I've always found Kia to be slightly better at the refinement when it comes to that than Hyundai. Hyundai are always a little bit, I don't know, they just seem to be a little bit behind Kia with that. As I say, it's a very, very minor criticism, don't get me wrong. The car's not uncomfortable, and when you're on kind of more open roads or at motorway speeds, it's a really pleasant place to be. And the refinement itself in terms of wind noise and things, I mean, these are big door mirrors out the side, you know, there's a little bit of wind rustle from that, but it's not uncomfortable at all in terms of the noise, the ambient noise coming from outside the car. It's absolutely fine. It's just, as I say, just that kind of ride quality around about town or at low speed. It just feels that little bit, I don't know, that little bit more jiggly than I was expecting. Don't know why. Other than that, it's an absolute joy. This is a really nice car to drive, and I've done some big trips in this car. I've done a lot of motorway driving in it. I've been across Salisbury Plain in it, I've done a lot of B roads, I've done a lot of A roads, and I haven't found a scenario where you could turn around and say, it really fell flat there. This is a good car, a really good car. Hyundai's best effort, definitely, in terms of the way it drives. It's stacking up well, let's just say that. Now, one of the safety systems that I didn't mention is this blind spot monitoring system. And I should give it mention because it's worthy of mention. It was on the Nexo that we had, the fuel cell car as well. When you indicate, you've got a little camera mounted on the mirrors, a blind spot camera. Now, it's an option, it is an option, but it could be an option worth having, I think. And when you indicate on the screen, on the driver's display in front of you, it gives you a little view of that camera. A little circle comes up with a little view of that camera in it. And I really like that. That's really handy. Even at low speed round about town, you can just kind of see, you know, if somebody stepped off a curb or if there's a bike just in your peripheral vision that you've not quite caught. I think that's a really good idea, especially when they don't give you that rear wiper. I think that's a good piece of safety equipment, and I like that. The other thing that I wanted to note as well, that I wanted to mention, was the transmission lever. Now, it's a sort of wand that comes out of the right hand side of the steering column, just below the column stock, and it's fine, it's absolutely fine. I don't mind it there, I absolutely have no problem with it at all. And again, this is probably just me, so, you know, don't take this as a big criticism. But you turn the end of it to select drive. So in other words, you go forward for drive, back for reverse. And there's a couple of times that I've been using it, I've done it, I've thought it should be the other way around, because if you have a transmission lever in an automatic car, you go forward for park and reverse and back for drive. So of course I've tried to do that on this turn and stop. I'm not sure why it's the other way around. I think it should be forward for reverse and neutral and back for drive, because it's more me, just me, okay, yeah, let's leave it at that then. Okay, fair enough, I'll stay quiet. Hi Wayne, how you doing?
All right.
Rather than me, folks, just witter on endlessly about cars and give my opinion, what I thought we'd do is we'd visit Wayne here. Now Wayne's a bit of a fan of the channel. He's one of our viewers and he's a friend of ours, and he's an electric car driver. So I thought I'd bring the car down to him. We're down in sunny Wales, which isn't quite so sunny today. So I've had a good drive down in the car and let Wayne have a shot on it. So as an electric car driver, what do you think of the new Ioniq 5?
So from a visual point of view, it looks spot on. I love the way it looks. I like that kind of the chunkiness of it,
Yeah.
the 80s kind of retro feel, but modernized.
Yeah.
So I love all of that. I also love the fact that I still haven't seen one on the road, so that feels quite nice.
Yeah.
You know, all that kind of stuff. It really doesn't matter, but I like that. The interior is massive.
It is big, isn't it?
It's a huge car inside,
Yeah.
and that is good for me. Not that I need always that much space, but I'd rather err on the side of caution. And I just would, coming from driving small cars, I realised what I missed out on: boot space, all of that.
Yeah.
So it's gigantic, and the fact that the actual front part of the car, you've got that movable compartment.
Yeah, the centre console that slides, yeah.
So it's like a breeze of nothingness in front of you if you want, which I don't, but if you want that, it's there, which
It's
I
the
love.
openness, isn't it, when you're in that driving environment? I say a lot of cars, like we've driven, let's say the BMW i3, it's very, very similar. The Honda E, they do give you that, even though some of them are quite small cars, they give you a really big feeling of space because of that openness. What about the tech? What do you think of the tech one? Is it too much? Is it just right? How would you use that?
I love a heads-up display, right?
Yeah.
It makes me happy because I like to look forward. So whenever I look at a car, that's what I always look for in a car. If it doesn't have a heads-up display, I'm not interested. Don't want it on the cockpit, want it right in front of me. I loved that heads-up display because it looked massive on the actual windscreen.
Yeah.
And I've actually never seen one imprinted on the screen before. They've always been on the kind of
and the
lift-off.
little mirror, little glass panes, yeah.
So this looked huge. So I absolutely loved that. I liked the console itself. So it's sort of split into two,
Yeah.
My driving position is probably a little bit awkward. So I would like some of the elements that are in the front to be on the
with you on the other screen.
That I have a easier visual
Cleaner view
time of seeing things. But other than that, I liked it. I liked the ambient lighting on the kind of doors around the speakers. Just because I love it, I'd have loved it something a little bit more on the top.
Yeah.
But otherwise, it looked good. I found the interior to be nice.
Yeah.
Not overly expensive.
Yeah.
Right. I didn't think I was just suddenly sat in a really luxury car. I didn't feel like that, but it felt really, really nice.
Yeah. Now, one of the other things I wanted to ask you about in terms of, because you're a bit of a you're a bit more of a stylish kind of guy than me. I don't really know an awful lot about things like this, but as a brand, Hyundai, they're quite young in the UK. They only came into the UK in 1982, and they weren't brilliant cars back then, but they just all of a sudden just seem to, over the years, look at it, it's almost like the car of the moment, isn't it? It is like a real kind of, in terms of brand, if you were going out buying a car, is it a brand that you would look at? Have you got any preconceived ideas of Hyundai, or would you say it's the car?
So, a friend of the channel, know very little about cars, right? And that's the truth. I saw the concept, I think, for that car. And so I didn't know much about anything to do with Hyundai before, but I remember seeing that picture and thinking, holy shit, that looks amazing. That car just looks really, really good. And that piqued my interest. But I'd never really explored the brand other than the brands that come to mind, Mini, BMW, Audi.
Yeah.
They're the ones that were kind of always...
Kind of circulating.
Yeah. But I'd never even considered that brand. No idea why. Just I'd never heard of it the same way I had those others. But when I saw the picture of the Ioniq, I loved that styling.
They've really come up thick and fast. In terms of EVs and where they are, them and the sister brand Kia. They've always been very good in terms of the technology, in terms of the range and their efficiency and their charging capabilities. But they've maybe been a little bit, dare I say, they've maybe played it a little bit safer on things like the styling and things like that, whereas now they just seem to have as you say, kind of leapfrogged into that ring that you've seen where you see other cars that you would think of, as you say, BMW, Mini, Audi, blah, blah, and all of a sudden they're in there now. Brilliant. Look, Wayne, thanks for the coffee. Thanks for helping us out on the channel today. Thanks for your opinion on it. We really do appreciate it. And hopefully you'll carry on watching. Anyway, back to this road test. Now, prices for the Ioniq 5 start with the SE Connect trim level, and that car is only available with the smaller battery single motor rear wheel drive, and that comes in at £37,000. Now, that means it does miss out on the UK's plug-in car grant. All of the Ioniq 5s do. It gives it that slightly more elevated prestige, if you like, over something like their Kona electric. And you then move up from that to the premium model, the SE Premium, or the ultimate spec, which I have here. Now, both of those cars you can actually have with all three kind of variants. So you can have small battery rear wheel drive, long range battery rear wheel drive, or you can have long range battery all wheel drive. And prices for those go from £39,000 up to about £48,000, and those prices are correct at time of filming. Now, competition for the Ioniq 5 may depend on how you see the car actually fitting into the marketplace, and it is quite a busy marketplace at this price point. You might see it competing with cars like the Volkswagen's ID3 and its bigger battery, higher spec trim levels. You wouldn't be wrong to think that. But of course you may see it as a compact crossover, an SUV style car, in which case it's more likely to be the ID4, Skoda's Enyaq, maybe Audi Q4 e-tron, which is spun off Volkswagen's MEB platform as well. Ford Mustang Mach-E, that could be a contender at this price. It could also be a contender for things like the Tesla Model 3 or even the Polestar 2. Now, Tesla have just also announced the Model Y for the UK, but starting price is going to be a bit over £50,000. So I think price-wise, this is a little bit better value for money than that, to be honest with you. But in fairness, the big competition for the Ioniq 5 is going to come from within its own family, because remember, the Kia EV6 and Genesis GV60 are going to be spun off the same platform, and they're certainly worthy of your consideration. So here's what we like and what we don't like about the Hyundai Ioniq 5. We like its looks, the space on offer, its refinement and comfort, its range and efficiency, and the tech. We don't like its low speed ride. Can feel a little complicated in places, and some of the cheaper interior plastics still annoy. Like I said right at the start of the film, this is a car I've really been looking forward to having on the channel, really been looking forward to driving. Has it disappointed me? Absolutely not. This is a brilliant car. This is a really good addition to that midsection of the market, that sort of £40,000 to £50,000 bracket where there is a plethora of brilliant EVs, and this is a real standout car in that marketplace. You've got to hand it to Hyundai and Kia, its sister brand, and now obviously Genesis, its luxury arm. They really are at the forefront of electric car development and bringing us some real gems. Bear in mind that Hyundai only came to the UK in 1982 with the aptly named Pony, and then went on to give us such gems as the Ford Cortina based Stellar. So for them to give us this car just 40 years later is absolutely incredible. It's certainly a car that stands out for us in this year of all these new additions to the market. This is a real standout product for us, and it's a real winner as far as we're concerned. Thank you as always for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe to the channel and press that little bell button that's down below so you get notification of when our next video goes live. A massive thank you to Wayne Goss as well for joining us today and for giving his thoughts and being such a champion and advocate of the AutoEV channel. Thank you, Wayne. Your input was invaluable. Remember, we're also on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're on Instagram, we're on LinkedIn, all of that malarkey. So make sure you get your phones now and go and like us and follow us and all those things. And have you been to autoev.co.uk yet? You haven't? Well, the video's finished. Go there now. Go on, go there now. There's loads of other videos of road tests of cars that you can look at. And if you don't like my ugly mug, then you can read about them because there's a written section as well for you. Aren't we good at that? Thanks again for watching. We'll see you soon. So, you've watched our video. It's now my job to tell you to like and subscribe and press the little bell button to receive notification of when our next video is uploaded.